Bienvenidos a todos, estamos aquí en Vacheron Constantin con Christian Selmoni, jefe de Patrimonio. Hi, hello. Es un placer poder estar aquí con una persona tan relevante para la marca y vamos a hacerle unas preguntas que podréis disfrutar en español sobre su paso por la marca, su perspectiva, ADN y demás. Así que, Christian, muchas gracias por estar aquí.
Muchas gracias.
Comencemos con el ADN de Vacheron. Has visto todo el heritage de la marca, has sido una persona clave en todo este desarrollo y en esta recopilación de información. ¿Cómo resumirías el ADN de Vacheron Constantin?
We are a maison which has been founded in Geneva 271 years ago.
Yeah.
So we have a non-stop activity through 4 centuries. I'm not that much the biggest fan of DNA, which sounds very strange for a watch brand. So I think our identity has been very much formed by this legacy and heritage and long history. On the contrary of some brands, when you think about Vacheron Constantin, I don't think you think immediately about one single timepiece out of our history. So, for me, I would say to summarize the identity or the style of Vacheron Constantin, there are words which come to my mind, and these words are, kind of classic in the sense of timeless, elegance, sophistication, refinement, sometimes with a little twist. I think that this is really our style. I think we are very much, I would say, on one side, a technical brand with a mastery of all aspects of technical watchmaking, from simple watches, ultra thin, up to grand complications. But in addition, and that's really important, since the very early years of the company, we have this kind of expertise in the field of decorative craft.
Cuando vemos el catálogo de Vacheron, vemos que hay una línea Historiques y un catálogo regular. ¿Cuál es el motivo detrás de tener una línea específicamente de Historiques y hacer reediciones en vez de darle continuidad simplemente a las colecciones dentro del catálogo?
I think in a way, I think we have been kind of pioneers. Speaking about vintage, we have that line historic since a long time ago, certainly 2006, even before we had some historical watches anyway. So for us, I think the historic line, it's a fantastic opportunity to speak about our legacy, our heritage, and also to revisit designs from the past, because through all our history, we have some watches which became emblematic. And the role of the historic, it's a kind of image collection. We select very drastically watches that we would like to introduce in the historic collection. As you know, we don't enter a lot of new watches into the historic line. We are very, very cautious about the curation for the watches that we enter in the collection, because we want absolutely that collection to remain really a nice image of what is Vacheron Constantin watchmaking art.
Conociendo tan en profundidad la historia de Vacheron, me gustaría saber cuál es la era de la marca que te resulta más interesante.
So it's another super difficult question. So I think the beginning of the 20th century, the 1910s and the 1920s, I think these 2 decades, they have been fantastic in terms of creativity at Vacheron Constantin with the emergence of wristwatches. We have experimented a lot of shapes, very different shapes. Some of them, they're really absolutely extravagant.
Yep.
That was a very interesting era, and I think it's really showcased the audacity and also the creative spirit of the brand. One watch which is from that era is obviously the American 1921. I think we have to talk about the 50s, 1950s. I think 1950s, it has been a decade of hyper elegance, a kind of sophistication in the simplicity with a beautiful design, etc. And also, this is a rupture between the pre-Second World War watches and the 50s, in the sense that the pre-Second World War watches, they were very much influenced in terms of design by pocket watches. And suddenly, after the Second World War, we are entering into the modern era, and this is also the beginning of the era of jets, traveling using planes. It's all about the future. It's all about also science fiction in a way. And so you see also during this decade also very, very surprising design, rectangular watches with geometrical shapes. So it's a super interesting era from the design point of view, and still the 50s is a decade that is inspiring watch designers, but not only in the field of watches. Also, the 50s remains a decade of inspiration for a lot of designers speaking about industrial design. I think the 70s is a bit underrated. This watch design from the 70s or early 70s, it was sometimes perceived as a bit too much, right? As a bit showing off. But I think also it's interesting because that was a decade also with a lot of changes geopolitically speaking. So think about the protest in the USA, and that also a decade where androgynous watches started to arrive, and that was also a decade of glam rock. I would say the key Vacheron watch of this decade is the Prestige de la France, asymmetrical, 1972, with this totally uninhibited kind of design. which was really designed for both men and women, absolutely extravagant and so much rooted in the 70s.
Hemos estado hablando del pasado. Me gustaría poder saber ahora cuál es tu perspectiva sobre el balance entre heritage y progreso, innovación y pasado. ¿Cómo una marca como Vacheron mantiene ese balance hoy en día?
There's a kind of responsibility for us as a watchmaking maison. You know, I'm not trying to say that heritage and legacy is really the backbone over everything, but as a matter of fact, when you have the chance to have such a long history, and when you have the chance to have archives, private collection, correspondence, photographs from the past, well, actually, all this, it's forming your identity. So I think we have to keep in mind the importance of where we come from, of who we are from the watchmaking point of view or from the design point of view. However, the key word is really we have to create modern contemporary watches. That said, we absolutely need to still be able to maintain a kind of a sensible link between today or tomorrow and where we come from. So we have to infuse in our watches some elements which are part of our identity. So sometimes it could be a shape, or it could be a kind of display. We infuse as well in our watches our watchmaking traditions and also our craft traditions. However, we express them within the world of today. I take the example of the twin beat from 2019. At the same time, this is a very respectful kind of watchmaking according to our standards. And on the other side, it's a hyper-modern technical solution. So that's a good example. And when we speak about crafts, okay, so we just revealed this morning Métiers, a tribute to great civilization, Opus 2, with the Louvre. So I think these watches, they are stunning, not only because the crafts is just phenomenal, but also that they are absolutely modern in terms of design, audacious, etc. So that for me is really exactly how we balance that heritage, which is not a weight that we have behind us, but rather always a source of inspiration or a kind of responsibility that we have. But definitely we are modern, we are a brand which is very much into the 21st century.
Sé que es una pregunta difícil, pero me gustaría saber, desde tu punto de vista, cuáles son las 2, 3, 4 contribuciones más importantes de Vacheron Constantin a la relojería y al progreso de la técnica relojera.
I think it's a difficult question because on which criteria are we going to judge that? I've been studying Vacheron Constantin history during quite a lot of time. What was very interesting for me is to realize that this is a watchmaking maison which always had a capacity to capture the moment in the air. Through all our history, we see that we have design which has been very much avant-garde. And for example, the beginning of decorative crafts at the beginning of the 19th century. Closer from us, I would say also Art Deco timepieces that we made in the 1920s, for example. It's beyond simply saying, yes, we did the most completed watch in 2005, which was the Tour de Lille. I think this is a bit reducing. So I was rather say that this is a maison which has been always able to reinvent itself. And of course, we have to talk about modern watchmaking because that goes in the direction of your question. So we see since now 20 years, we see this incredible development of fine watchmaking and the fact that watchmaking is no longer a niche, a small niche within the luxury ecosystem, but rather very much part of it. During the modern times or these days, I think Vacheron Constantin made huge contributions to fine watchmaking, and I would like to mention records like the Tour de Lille in 2005. Of course, I would like to mention the 57-60, the Berkley from 2024, and the Solaria from last year. And on top of that, the cherry on the cake, I think this is also the Quest of Time, which is amazing. So you see, so now it's a bit too early to say that will these watches become really, like milestones in our history. I'm not the guy really to answer that question, but I think yes, probably most of them they will be.
Por último, me gustaría saber cuál es tu involucración en la creación de nuevos productos para Vacheron Constantin. Como jefe de Heritage, evidentemente entiendo que formas parte de la inspiración de los nuevos productos, pero me gustaría tener una respuesta un poco más precisa sobre cómo es este proceso.
Yeah, you're right. So during my years at Vacheron Constantin, I've been product director and also artistic director. That means that I spent most of my career in the field of product, development, design, etc., etc. So now this day, I spend my time at Vacheron Constantin between, I would say, product and also heritage. The mission with heritage is really to let's say, put a spotlight on the maison history and legacy. But the other side, really, about products, I'm a very active member of committees which are related to creation, which are related to product, which are related to movement development and also innovation. I'm also, in a way, the voice of Vacheron Constantin in this kind of activities. So, yes, so I can bring my knowledge or experience of Vacheron Constantin timepieces from the past, also the history of the brand. Speaking about the movement, what kind of complication we have done in the past, and what kind of basically said display or displaying complication or displaying of time could be interesting to be inspired today by. But I'm not anymore directly involved in strictly speaking the design of the product. So my colleagues, they do it super well. But I'm still very active about everything which is related with future developments in terms of watches, definitely, but also in terms of movement and also in terms of new techniques, new technologies, innovation in general. So
great.
It's a matter to share a bit the lifetime I've been spending until now at Vacheron Constantin and to try to give the best of what I can give with my experience,
of course.
Basically.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christian. It's been a huge pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.